All right, strap in, everyone, because today we're tackling a mystery that's chilled spines for decades.
Yeah, a real head scratcher.
The Dyatlov Pass Incident.
You got it. And we're diving deep thanks to all the research our listeners sent in. Clearly, they're hooked on this one, and honestly, who can blame them?
Yeah, I mean, 9 hikers, experienced hikers, vanish in the dead of winter in the Ural Mountains back in February 1959.
And it's not just the vanishing act weeks later. Their tent is found, slashed open from the inside, bodies scattered across the mountains, some with injuries. Well, let's just say they're not easily explained.
It's a case that just grabs you, doesn't it? All those unanswered questions. So you're our expert on this. Can we start with the basics just to make sure everyone's on the same page?
Absolutely. So these weren't weekend warriors, you know. We're talking about students from the Ural Polytechnical Institute led by Igor Dyatlov. This guy, Igor, was the real deal, a seasoned hiker.
Okay, so a group of experienced, well-equipped hikers. What was their plan?
A 16-day skiing expedition, pretty ambitious. Their goal was to reach Gora Otorten, a peak in the northern Urals.
Not exactly a walk in the park, those Urals.
Right, especially in February. And that's where things start to get interesting because it seems severe weather forced them off course.
Ah, so they had to improvise.
Exactly. They ended up on the slopes of Kolatsiakol, and let me tell you, that name is chillingly accurate. It translates to dead mountain in the local Mansi language.
Dead mountain. Okay, now I'm getting goosebumps. So they're on this mountain, weather's bad. What happens next?
Well, that's where the real mystery kicks in, right? Imagine finding that tent weeks later, ripped open from the inside, like they were trying to escape something in a hurry.
I'm picturing it footprints leading out into the snow. It's like something out of a horror movie.
And the bodies, scattered across a vast area, some partially dressed, some miles from the tent. It's a scene that defies easy explanation.
All right, let's talk about those injuries. What did the investigators find?
This is where things get really strange. We're talking fractured skulls, sure, but also missing eyes and tongues in some cases.
Hold on, missing eyes and tongues. That's pretty disturbing. What could possibly cause that?
That's the question that's haunted researchers for decades. It's almost as if multiple forces were at work, each leaving its own, well, unsettling mark.
Multiple forces. You mean like the environment,
Yeah.
animals, or something? Something more sinister.
Exactly. Was it just the brutal cold, a desperate fight for survival? Or was there something more at play? And you know, you mentioned sinister, the context of this, the Cold War. It really adds another layer to this whole thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, those were tense times. I can see how people's imaginations would run wild.
Right. Especially when you consider that the initial Soviet investigation was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly transparent. That lack of information, it just fueled all sorts of speculation.
Right, like those theories about secret weapons tests or government cover-ups. I mean, some of the stuff our listeners sent us, wow, it gets pretty wild.
Oh, yeah, you've got your Yeti encounters, your alien abductions, the whole 9 yards.
But let's be realistic. You're a scientist. Do any of those hold water?
Honestly, not really. They're more like, I don't know, attempts to fill the void where concrete answers should be. But the fact that they exist, it speaks to the power of this mystery, right? It
Well,
makes you wonder, what really happened up there?
okay, so let's stick to the facts. What are some of the more plausible theories out there?
Well, one that's gained traction in recent years is the avalanche theory.
Oh, yeah, I've read a bit about that. Something about a slab avalanche.
Right, so imagine this, the hikers are asleep in their tent, and suddenly, without much warning, this massive slab of snow breaks loose and comes barreling down the slope.
I'm getting claustrophobic just thinking about it.
And the thing is, these slap avalanches, they can be deceptively quiet. You might not even hear it coming until it's too late.
So they're trapped, they panic, they slash their way out of the tent. It's a terrifying scenario.
And the force of that avalanche, it could explain some of those injuries, the broken bones, the internal damage. Plus, the disorientation, the chaos, it could explain why they were scattered, why some were partially dressed.
It does fit, but what about those missing eyes and tongues? Does the avalanche theory explain that?
That's the tricky part. It doesn't quite fit, does it? And that's why this case remains so compelling. Even the most plausible theory leaves us with unanswered questions.
So we've got this avalanche theory, which makes sense in some ways, but then there are these other details that just don't add up. It's frustrating, isn't it?
It is, and that's what keeps researchers digging, keeps people like our listeners sending in theories and articles. We want to understand. We want to know what happened to those hikers. It's a very human need, you know, to make sense of tragedy.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. This happened over 60 years ago, and we're still talking about it. Why? because it speaks to something deep within us, this need to solve puzzles, to confront the unknown.
Exactly. And, some people find that frustrating, the lack of a clear answer. But I think there's beauty in the mystery and the process of exploration.
I see what you mean. It's like we're all detectives piecing together the clues, trying to make sense of the evidence. And even if we never find that one definitive answer, the journey itself is enriching.
Right. It teaches us to think critically, to question assumptions, to be open to different perspectives. And in a way, that's more valuable than just being handed the truth on a silver platter.
So what do you think? What are some things our listeners can ponder as they continue their own deep dive into Dyatlov Pass? What's the takeaway here?
I would say this. Don't get too hung up on finding the right answer. Embrace the mystery, the ambiguity. Let it spark your curiosity, your imagination. Because sometimes the most important discoveries aren't about finding solutions, but about asking better questions.
I like that. It's not just about Dyatlov Pass. It's about how we approach any mystery, any challenge in life. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, keep an open mind.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe someday new evidence will come to light. Maybe with advances in technology, we'll be able to analyze the existing evidence in a new way.
Maybe we'll finally crack the code.
Yeah, maybe. But even if we don't, the journey itself will have been worth it. And that's the beauty of a good mystery. It keeps us thinking, keeps us searching, keeps us human.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the Dyatlov Pass incident. Big thanks to our listener for sending us their research and to you for sharing your expertise. Until next time, keep exploring.
Always.